On today's Cracking Backs podcast, we step onto the field and deep into the mind with Max Rooke, Associate Head Women's Soccer Coach at Pepperdine University and an elite mindset mentor. From hidden burnout and some of the crippling perfectionism to the pressures of NIL deals and nonstop social media exposure, we're going to pull back the curtain on the mental health battles that a lot of today's students and student athletes are facing. What's a max moment? In that life-changing spark where everything shifts, and this episode is packed with insight that might just create yours. Get ready for practical, powerful tips that inform you at your best and on and off the field. Let's go.
All right. I am excited because I'm finally going to get to meet a guy that has this legend status at the university I work with. And for the US audience, you were a professional soccer player. For the European audience, you were a professional footballer. Then you went to be a coach of a D1 school. You've also written a book about finding pivotal mental moments called the Max Moments. So you're quite the eclectic person. And the reason we wanted you on the show is to talk about something that I feel is a big deal going on in the world right now, and that's the mental state for athletes and dealing with what they have to deal with from when we were kids to the landscape that they have to express now. But what first, just kick off the show. First off, welcome to our show, Max. And I'm gonna say it, and Spencer always makes fun of me. I am not the linguistic of the group, and I am the worst linguistic and writer. And I mean, the list goes on. But is it Rooke? Is your last name?
You got it. That's it.
Look at
First
that.
time. Right out the
Perfect.
gate. Look at that.
So let's first off, welcome to the show, bud.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you too. Love it. Love what you're doing in the world. Love, your professions and then how you've taken that and created this podcast. I listened to a couple of episodes and awesome job. Awesome job. So keep it up.
Oh, so appreciate it. So as a professional athlete turned coach, you started looking at the mental aspect. And when did your eyes open up to the importance of the mindset and the mental coaching in athletes? When did that kind of start?
Yeah. So I won't give you the whole story.
Please.
I'm originally from England, came over in 1998. And when I started sort of this journey in the world of high performance, it was with Reading Football Club. And that's where I was, on my journey to be a professional footballer, professional soccer player and stuff. And then at quite an early age, they said, hey, you're probably not going to be, you're not tall enough, you're not strong enough, you're not whatever. And maybe you need to find a different path. So then it became that question of like, what's next, right? And so what's next? And so I was bounced around with like trying out with some other clubs and stuff. And then this opportunity to come out to America, like it was brand new at the time. You see a lot of people, internationals, that come over and play college sports right now. But at the time, back in 1998, that wasn't really a thing. I didn't really know anybody. And so the Professional Football Association put together these tryouts and said, hey, do you want to go out and play? So I was like, sure, let me give it a try. So I go out and this tryout, meet this coach. He says, do you want to come to Macon, Georgia? Right? Have you ever heard of Macon, Georgia? Macon, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And he's like, you want to come and play for me? I'm like, you know what? Let's go. And there's, again, we're just going to talk about it, but like in my head, I always knew there was something more out there for me, but I didn't know what it was. And so this opportunity to come out to America, literally, I packed a bag, and I had a suitcase, a dream, and a positive attitude. I said, somehow I'm going to make this work. So I come out to America and start this journey over here. Played college soccer, had some really cool things happen. I think, is it Dr. Terry? Did you compete? Got to serve in a world championship, the World University Games. Was that right?
Yes.
Did I read about that?
Yep.
So I got to play in two world championship, two World University Games in 2001 in Beijing, China, and 2003 in Daegu, Korea. So this world of high performance and playing at a really high level was something that I just did. It kind of came naturally and stuff. And then I got into coaching, and after kind of that career kind of died out a little bit, the game had given me so much, like I was so blessed, traveled the world, got to see so many things, got to do so many things that at that time, it was like, I want to give back to the game for what the game gave to me, and somehow I'm going to figure this thing out. So coaching became the natural way. So then I got into coaching, became a high school coach, became a high school teacher. Then I got into college coaching. I met my beautiful wife, who's been married for 17 years now. She's a college coach too. She's the associate head coach for Pepperdine beach volleyball team, works with Marcio Ciccoli. So we've been doing this thing called life together, kind of alongside each other. And at the time when I was living in Georgia, she got this opportunity to accept this position at the University of Illinois in Springfield. Freezing cold. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going from like hot to like minus 10 degrees, you know, black ice, you know, shoveling the driveway of snow in the morning just to get to work. And I'm like, oh my goodness me. But it was like, we're gonna do this thing. So where I'm going with it is we got there, and this was Division 2 level. So now we're at the Division 1 level, we're at the Division 2 level, and I saw a lot of people that were really good, but I felt like they had the potential to be great. And so I was like, how do I make an impact? And I'm already making an impact like as a soccer coach, but like, how do I make an impact? Some of this idea of like some of the strategies and skills I'd learned from that kind of the mental side. So I went over to the psychology department. The faculty athletic rep at UAS, where we were, was also the head of the psychology department. I went to him and I said, look, just like you two kind of two brains get together. I said, his name is Marcelo. I said, Marcelo, we got to do something. So we created a program, a mental skills program for the athletes at UAS. And it just like, boom, just took off. Just people were just resonating with all our ideas and stuff like that. And that's when I knew that alongside coaching soccer, but helping people see what they can't see for themselves was really important to me. And that really unearthed something in me about, okay, let's take this journey. And so from there, and I've gone on and done all these sorts of things. And so it's kind of paralleled, this idea of mental skills training and stuff. It's paralleled with, you know, soccer is really just the vehicle, you know, soccer is the vehicle to teach life. Soccer is the vehicle to teach skills that can help us in many, many facets. And that's what I believe we still do to this day with our current team. It's like, you know, soccer is just the vehicle to teach life, to help our extraordinary girls at Pepperdine become extraordinary women. So, but if you're asking me where it started then. It started at Division 2 program in the middle of nowhere, you know, I say shoveling snow to get to work. And I'm like, you know, but there was something, it was like, boom, that was the moment. And I haven't looked back since.
You know, that's awesome. You know, I think a word thrown around a lot is burnout. And I think a lot of the students trying to balance everything from the physical to the mental side is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And, you know, you mentioned you saw athletes that were good and you wanted to make them great. How do you keep them from quitting? And when they say, I'm burned out, which is part of life. I mean, when I first really deeply connected to Spencer, I was burned out, and he pulled me out of the trenches, so to speak. And how do you do that for these athletes when you heard the word burnout and you see their posture change, you see them physically change? How can you talk to us about that process?
Yeah, well, I love you said that. I love you jumped into physiology and just kind of the idea of that, because mental state, but it's connected to our physical state too, right? So it's like if I'm going to work with anybody, the first thing we talk about is your state, right? And it's your focus, it's your physiology, it's your language, right? And it's all these different things. And so physiology is such an important piece of it. But connected with that, to me, it's state. So it's how you showing up to life every day, how you showing up to the moment. Like, you know, if I get on this, like Spencer's never met me and Spencer's like, who's this guy? And I show up and like, hey, what's up? You know, really excited to be. You'd be like, get this guy off this podcast. What are we doing? You know, you invited this guy on it, get him off it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so you can't show up to the moment. I always say this, like, is the state you are in aligned with the result that you're trying to create? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want big things to happen in your life, then you've got to show up in the right state. I see too many people, they have these big goals and these big dreams, but yet the state they're in, the state they show up to life in every day doesn't match the goals that they have. And so there's this imbalance. And so a big part of it, first of all, is like, how are you showing up to life every day? Is the state you're in aligned with the result that you're trying to create? And obviously the world we live in, results means, you know, I want to start. I want to be the best. I want to be a player of the year. I want to get to the Final Four. I want to win a national championship. I want to win the WC, like whatever that's going to be for a businessman. I want to make a lot of money, or, you know, in relationships. I want to be a great husband. I want to be a great wife. Like whatever it is, let's say we're teaching life here, not soccer. Soccer is the vehicle to teach life. So these principles stand the test all over. But I think it starts with state, and then the second piece. So go back to you with burnout. The second piece, because you see it, right? you see when somebody's burnt out, what changes their state? Heads down, shoulders shrugged, like life is hard, you know? So it's that physiological state. But second piece for me, which is a big thing, is I believe a lot of the work I do now with our athletes and anybody is helping them create better meanings in their life. You know, so it's really, what is the story that you're telling yourself, right? A story is nothing but a set of beliefs that we've created about why things are the way in our life. So when tough things happen, what is burnout? It's a result of all these things coming at us and we don't feel like we can handle them, or we don't have the tools or strategies to handle them. And sometimes it's not getting better strategies, better tools. Sometimes it's just reframing what it means to you, you know? And so if I can help people reframe what things mean to them, then that's powerful. And that's kind of what I'm not want to plug. That's what the book is. That's what the book is. It's all about little short stories about how do you reframe and create better meanings of things in your life. And when you can create better meanings, you're going to get better actions, and better actions are going to create better results, you know? And so I think burnout is a lot of that is just poor meanings.
So Max, first of all, can you just show our viewing audience what your shirt says? Because I can only see a part of it. L2TM, life to the max.
Life to the max, baby. Yeah.
Love
it,
man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I like the color too, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Max, you know, this is interesting because you have student athletes that people don't appreciate what they go through, because we get regular students that come into patients that they call NARPs, non-athletic regular people, right?
I remember when I first said that.
They're fried, right? So I can
Yeah.
imagine what a student athlete, I can imagine, I've seen it. I've had actually a couple come to me and say they were thinking about suicide, but point being, because they go through a lot. They have to excel in school academically, and then they have to excel in the sport. And that is obviously means a lot to them. So when you develop that target for them, then they become, some of them become perfectionists. At what point does that create burnout? At what point do you help them identify where they want to go? They come up with this energy and all that, and they keep maybe missing the mark, or
yeah. Well, I think that's a great question. I'm already loving the questions, by the way. Hit me with the big ones right out the gate. It's great. But I think, I tell you, I bring it back to our Pepperdine soccer team. So it's, you said about stories, right? It's like there's so many things that we experience every day, and that's how we can explain a lot of things. So I'd say a lot of times, we're pretty good. Pepperdine soccer, right? Dr. Terry, you've seen us. We're pretty good, right? So we compete, one of the top teams in the country, and so to play at that level, you get a lot of high level people, these perfectionists. They come into the program and they're used to being a big fish in a little pond, and then they come into Pepperdine soccer, and all of a sudden, and there's not just Pepperdine soccer, there's a lot of great athletes and a lot of great programs at Pepperdine, right? And then they're also, sudden they come in, and then they're a little fish in a big pond, right? And so what happens is their identity is impacted, because they're used to, because a lot of times their identity is, I'm the woman. Their identity is, I'm used to being the captain. I'm used to being the one that the team leans on. I'm used to being the top goal scorer. I'm used to playing every minute of every second of every game. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, when that doesn't happen, it's like an identity crisis. It's like, oh my God, like, what's going on? And so then there's all these emotions start to come up, and all of these things start to happen. And then this, I'm not the best anymore. And so there's this conflict. And then maybe you get the parents like, why are you not starting? And all of a sudden there's all these added pressure from other people because they're used to a certain way. And so I think a lot of, when people come into my office, I feel like within about 3 questions, I can, they're like, Coach Max, can I come and sit down? I'm like, yeah, sure. Come on, sit down. They're like, they have a soccer question. I'm like, hey, let's talk about soccer. And then invariably, I know they don't want to talk about soccer, right? And then you ask one question, and then you ask another question, and within about 3 questions, it's like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but then maybe the waterworks come, and then I'm like, okay, let's talk about what you really want to talk about. And then it's like, it's real. It's like, I don't know how to handle this. Like, I've been the best for so long, and I don't know how to sit on the bench. And so a big part of, I guess, what I'm bringing this up is, I say a big part of what I do for right now, what comes to my head is to say, helping our players understand that your value doesn't come from what you do, it comes from who you are. Well, your value if you tie it to results, if you tie it to starting, if you tie it to being the leading goal scorer, when that goes away, then you don't have anything. So how do we help our young women and young men, but just I happen to work with women, but how do we help our young athletes? But for me especially, like, and I have a special heart for helping empower young women. Like, how do we help our young women understand that the value doesn't come from playing, it comes from who they are. And you can play on our team and you can play every minute, you can play no minutes, but we're still going to love you. You're still a massive part of what we do. And when you understand that, you free yourself up to step in and be your best self, you know? But until that moment, if you're always wrestling with comparison and she's this and she's that. So if we take away that, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it's a conditioning process. But if we can get them to a place where they separate themselves from that identity and that comparison, I think that's the first step. Going back to what you said, Dr. Terry, about this burnout and just some of the struggles that some of these young athletes have now. I think that's a big piece of it is identity and where they get their identity from. And that's where I go back to this idea of meaning. If we can shift the meaning of what identity is to them, then it opens up for them to even step into an even more empowering version of themselves, you know? And I don't want to monotonize the conversation because I obviously want to open up the questions. But the other thing that comes up for me is you two are amazing at what you do, and like they come to you for something very specific in terms of medical stuff. And one of the big things is when somebody gets injured, when somebody has like a 6 to 9 month recovery from a serious injury, and they come in my office and they're broken. They're broken. Why are they broken? Because their identity has been, I've been the woman for 18 years of my life, 19 years of my life, 20 years of my life. And now I have nothing because soccer is the only thing, was my identity. And now it's gone. And so in that moment, it's almost like it's the end for them. And so then my job, at least I believe my job, that's my job, you know, outside of just coaching, my job is then to help them see, well, what if it's not the end? But what if you create a different meaning? What if it was the beginning? What if it was the beginning of you figuring out who you're really meant to be and creating new identity, so that when soccer shows back up in your life, you're even more powerful, you know? And so there's been many a time where we've gone through that process and somebody at the end comes back into my office 9 months later after like an ACL and says, Coach, I don't know how to describe this, but I thought my career was over when it happened. And now I look back and it was actually the biggest blessing in my life. Because now I know who I am without soccer. And now soccer's back. I'm even better. I'm even stronger. I'm even fitter. I'm even more emotionally fit than I am physically fit. And I'm ready to rock and roll. And they come back and they're an even better version of themselves. You're like, who is this person? You know? And so, but it took that injury to help them realize who they were. Right. And so that's those meanings I talk about. Like, you know, for many people, is it the end or is it the beginning? And so anyways, there's multiple examples, but that's an idea. And I think you two would resonate with that because that's what you do. And that's on that medical side. It's like there's an emotional component and a mental component that goes with that recovery. You know, there's the physical recovery, but then there's also the mental recovery.
This, Terry, I got to tell you, man.
He gets goosebumps when it's a good show. So this is a good start. We're at 17 minutes in. He's already getting the goosebumps. So Max, you're hitting a home run, buddy.
Max, I don't even think you realize how I just broke out in a sweat. So I don't think you realize how you are hitting the nail directly on the head, man. You are talking about stuff that actually is. I tell my kids about it all the time. I go, don't let your identity become that car or your long hair or because you see it all the time. Because we live in there's kind of a wealthy area here in South Florida, and we get some spoiled brats that drive these really beautiful cars. They get a little dent and it's their world. They just get destroyed. And I go, that's because he has no identity personally. It's the car, or it's the dog, or it's some, and those things are fragile. You know, I've seen buddies of mine who had, you know, beautiful long hair growing up, and now they're bald, and that hair was their identity. You know, I mean, it's just crazy stuff. But what you're saying is so valuable in the sport. But man, for those listeners who have never picked up a ball or been on a field or been athletic whatsoever, their identity may be somewhere else than not here. So
Yeah.
thank you, because that's enormously important. I love that. Thank you.
Can we say, I appreciate that. And I was going to say this is, like, and I wasn't planning on saying this, but just you saying, Dr. Spence, like, isn't that what guys do in midlife crisis?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I know it's not a guy show, right? But it's like, you see where I'm going with it? Like
Yep.
this is stuff that it's like, it's applicable. I just take it and I just apply it to sport, and I just help it with our women. But it's like, I'm 45. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I've just been through it. I'm like, what are we doing here? So it's like, it's real. It's real.
Wow.
I didn't
know we were only a year apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Come on.
Hey, Max, for like
that went down the wrong way.
Like a millisecond, I bought into it, and I went, "What? What's he talking about?"
Maybe the water went down the wrong way. That's good.
Thank you. I'm here all week.
Oh man. All right, Max, I want to ask you something that's probably burning in most people's minds right now. It's that NIL stuff, that name, image, and likeness craziness that's going on. That people are under the microscope. Athletes are under the microscope constantly, and it has, it's interesting because the NCAA, it's like the pendulum swung in the completely opposite direction and empowered the student athlete.
Yeah.
What have you seen mentally for these kids that are constantly under the microscope that even have a shot at any kind of NIL? What do you see mental health wise with that?
Oof. Yeah. How do I answer that? It's a big subject right now, and it's constantly changing. I almost feel like if I say something right now, probably 2 days later, what I'm saying is going to be irrelevant because they've changed the rules, and it's just more onto something else because it changes that quickly. So with the NIL stuff,
like in the beginning versus
I mean, the rules are always changing. That's kind of where I'm going. It's like, recruiting rules are always changing, and then like saying, then it was an amateur thing, and then it went to the NIL money, and then all of a sudden now there's roster limits, and now with roster limits come, now you have the ability to pay players and stuff like that, and revenue sharing and stuff like that, and it's just like it's constantly changing, But if we just stay on like NIL, I think that what it's done, and you hit it on the head. It's really shifted, and changed kind of who has the power a little bit. Like I'm not gonna say it used to be because I do believe it still is this way. But coming and playing at Pepperdine, whatever sport or whatever school, because there's so many amazing schools out there. So let's just not make it about Pepperdine. Let's make it about every school. Every school has something that makes it uniquely special. And going and getting an education and going and playing a sport or not, like say the Nats, right? Whatever, just going to a school, having the privilege to go somewhere, having the privilege to step onto the show and be with you guys and share time with you. It's a privilege. It's an honor, right? And with that comes this feeling of like, man, I'm doing something really special. And so when the coaches in the university kind of were in control, it's like you were inviting players into your program. Like, hey, would you like to come and play for us? Like, we have something to offer you, and we believe that we can help you be a better woman, turn you into a better man, But with this NIL stuff, it shifted. Now you're trying to convince somebody to come play for you. You see the difference? Trying to invite somebody, but trying to convince somebody, it's two different things. Like, I'm trying to make somebody believe that they should come and play at Pepperdine, instead of saying, hey, we have something special to offer you. And if you would like that, and if you feel in your heart that it's the right thing to do, then we have a spot for you, versus like, I'm trying to outbid somebody else. I'm trying to outbid the next school. And the only way that you're going to come to, I'm looking at both of you, I'm going to say, well, I'm going to give you this much. And then you'll say, well, I can't come to, now I'm going to give you this much. And we're going to be in a bidding war as to like which school you go to based off of money. Like it's changed the game, and it's changed the reason why people are choosing schools. And I think that's why also you're seeing the transfer portal is blown up, right? And the transfer portal is blown up because I think many people now they're choosing schools for the wrong reasons, or for a distorted vision of what they think that school is, and they get there and they realize maybe it doesn't fit everything that they want out of a school that they were looking for, and maybe they were chasing the money, right, or they were chasing the scholarship, or they were chasing this and that, and then they get there and realize, wow, there's more to this thing than just money, right? There's more to, there's more to this experience. And so you're seeing a lot of people now hop schools, transfer. And so, yeah, so I think the power shifted. So that's how I would describe it, if that makes
Hey,
sense.
Max, I want to ask you something. We talked. You're a mental guy. We know that the brain doesn't really develop that frontal lobe until like 24, 25, 26, right? And so we're asking these 18-year-olds who don't have full neurological brain capacity to make adult decisions that they never had
Mm,
to do before, and where they may have wanted for passion wise to play for a certain coach, but now there's this conflict with parents who do have a frontal lobe who maybe say, oh, this is the bare money deal, but the kid had, we brought in a whole different aspect on a neurological level
mm-hmm.
now that we didn't have
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
As a mental coach, when you're recruiting, how do you deal with a underdeveloped brain when you're asking these athletes to make a developed brain decision?
Good question. I mean, I'm hearing that going, wow, like you're almost, I've thought about it, but the way you just articulated that, it opens up, even for me, like a perspective, like, wow, I haven't thought of it like that. That underdeveloped brain. It's a really unique way of looking at it. Like, for instance, we're in a position part in the summer right now. So June 15th, right now, again, the rules may change, but right now we're in a position where June 15th is the first time, at least for soccer, you can talk to rising juniors, so sophomores in high school, and begin having conversations with them about the potential for them coming to your school. So you're talking, how old is a sophomore in high school?
Mm,
15?
yeah, like
Uh,
15, 16. Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're trying, so if we go based on this pathway of conversation, you're trying to talk to a 15-year-old about what they want to do with their life. You're trying to talk to them about money. You're trying to talk to them about scholarship. You're trying to talk to them about, these, players that are getting $1 million contract. And again, not women's soccer, but basketball, football. There's what the softball, right? First $1 million NIL deal and stuff like that. So you're talking about life changing decisions, life changing money that is happening as early as like 15.
Oh my
So
gosh.
how do you make that decision? I don't know. So for me, it's and Tim, who I get to work with. We haven't mentioned that, but I get to work with Tim and Amber and Kevin, like our staff. And Tim has been at Pepperdine for 33 years, and his evolution within the game is, he always talks about how it's just cyclical. It just continuously is changing. He's always having to just reshape himself and reshape like his process and how we do things. But I don't think what hasn't changed is we will always work from a place at Pepperdine and with Tim and I where we're going to stay true to who we are. So the game, quote unquote, will continue to evolve, right? All the new rules and stuff like that. But at least for us, like, you got to stay true. These are young girls' lives. These are
Right.
these are transformational experiences that we can provide for people. And so we're not just looking for the best players. We're looking for the right players. We're looking for great humans as well as great soccer players. And so our process has to not get caught up in all of
Mm.
that other stuff, and if we can stay aligned with who we are, then I think that helps us navigate this process, because it's easy to get caught up in all the other stuff, right? And so it's challenging for us, and it's actually, I think it's helpful for us, because in a way it helps us to get clear on who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we can't play the same game that some of the SEC schools are playing, and so on, whatever, all these different conferences, we have to play our game. And our game is we're Pepperdine, we're a Christian school, we're right for the right type of person, and so our job is to go find those young women, and to give those young women the opportunity to come play for us. But yeah, we can't. It's a comparison, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. So
Before Spencer asks the next question or goes that direction, I want to stay on this point because you mentioned the transfer portal. At what point do you look at a person who's already been in the college system a little bit, so has matured a little bit, maybe mentally and physically, versus taking a chance of a brand new high school, younger, underdeveloped brain?
Yeah.
How do you make that's a tough decision to make that you
Mm,
didn't have to make before.
right, right. Um, Great question. I think the simple way of looking at it, I'll say, is different programs, different schools look at it different ways. And if you're looking to create more of an immediate type of reaction, like if you need an immediate result, then you're probably going to go more towards experience, right? You're going to go more towards like, hey, we need something right now, you know. Um, so then that transfer portal is, and and I don't want to give the transfer portal bad rock, because there are some players in there that they just need a new home. Maybe they haven't got that break that they need, and so it's actually the perfect thing for them to be able to find a second, another second opportunity, right? A rebirth at life, and just being able to go after it. So I think the transfer portal has its positives, but yeah, for certain schools, I think that if you're looking for an immediate impact, then you go to the transfer portal. If you're trying to create alignment and you're trying to create long-term growth and long-term sort of vision, then a big part of that is going to be, hello, go in the background. A big part of that is going to be making sure that the players that come into your program align with your values and all those things. And sometimes that takes time. And so learning, and that's why those players in high school, you get to learn more about them, you get to see them, they come visit, and you get to learn more about them and have this relationship and develop this relationship. And I think that creates a longer term type of vision. And I think that's where we've had success, is because people come into our program and they don't really graduate. I mean, they don't really transfer out of our program, because we have a long-term view of what we're trying to do. It's not just, it's about come in, help us get results, graduate, get out. It's like, no, let's do this thing called life together, you know? And so just like marriage, right? You don't just, get married and then boom, it's like you commit to something long-term. And I think that would be how I would view our sort of vision of what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to create like a long-term relationship, not a short-term relationship. And I think that's the difference between recruiting in the transfer portal and recruiting in high school players.
Do you guys experience a transition or an issue where, somebody doesn't have the talent, but they have the Instagram masses, or Snapchat or Facebook, or well, Facebook's for old people anyway, but the
Yeah.
but they have the the TikTok views and all that.
Yeah.
And and they're a marginal player, but that bringing them on board could increase the butts and seats at a stadium or something. I mean, does that have any relevance to it? I mean, it does.
No, I would say Dr. Terry knows we don't even have stands, so we don't get butts and seats. We don't need so we
Feet on the field.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I get it. I mean, if that's important to some people, I wouldn't say that we look at that necessarily.
Does the school look at that though, or no?
Maybe some other schools.
Some others,
potentially, maybe some other schools. But again, I think that where we're at in terms of what we're trying to do and what our vision is, I don't think that really plays into
it's about
too
the
much.
talent, the merit.
Yeah.
It was interesting that take a winning coach like Nick Saban in the world of football, and we ended up at Miami Dolphins getting him, and he failed miserably because he was more of a dictator and used the leverage in college that you create with how expensive it is, the sponsor, the scholarships and things like that, that if you didn't do well in college, he could can you. And that meant, you lose your scholarship. Where in the NFL, or pro sports, those guys were making more money than the coach, so that dynamic didn't work. How in the world? Let me ask you, do you ever have coaches come in to talk to you?
What do you mean? So give me reframe that again a little bit.
Because coaches can be under a lot of stress as well, or some of the staff.
So you're talking about to me personally? To me personally, do coaches come and talk? Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of it. I think that's actually, I'm appreciate you saying that, because I think that is something that I have definitely a pattern that I've seen, and I'm kind of moving into a little bit, in the sense of so much of my work has been about like helping athletes, helping, you know, younger players, college players, pro athletes, whatever it's going to be. But now I'm seeing that there's not a lot of support for coaches. And so that some of the conversations I'm having with coaches, it's helping me to see, I'm like, man, there's a void there. And so I am beginning that process of taking it upon myself to start to create things that can, you know, opportunities, masterminds, groups, whatever it's going to be, like ways in which I can support coaches. Cause that is you're spot on, you know, like so much of what we do, like if somebody goes to an event and it's like, hey, I want to learn this, I want to go to this seminar and stuff like that. But what are they really doing? They're really doing it so they can take it back and they can give it to their players. It's like how much of our development is based around personal development for coaches, right? How do we show up and be a better human, a better leader, a better husband, right? So that we can also then be that for our team. And so that is a void, you know. And I think it can be lonely. I mean, that's the other thing I think I'm seeing too. Just men to men, I'm like, as connected as sports is and as connected as team sports is, if you're at the top of the chain, it can be awfully lonely. You know, it can be awfully lonely. Who do you go to if you're the top? If you're Nick Saban, you're the top, and everybody's looking at you. Who do you go to when you need something? Right. You know what I'm saying? And unless you have an inner circle or support group or whatever it's going to be to help you with that, then so that's does that make sense? That's what I'm kind of leaning into a little bit more. And I'm some of the conversations I'm hearing is like coaches need it as much as players, you know, in terms of the mental side, the emotional, all of those things we talk about.
Yeah, I imagine, you know, the coaches need a coach every once in a while.
100%.
You know, 100%. To guide them through, because it can get pretty rough at the top. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. A lot of pro guys, they hire mental toughness coaches, or you know, they call them different things at that level.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget a pitcher for the Philadelphia. Who was he pitch for? Anyway, he was a big time pitcher, Cole Hamels, and he told me once that he hired a mental conditioning or mental toughness coach. Now, this is a guy at the top of his game, but he needed somebody, and there was such an elementary comment that I go, well, what could your coach teach you? And he said, and this goes back to something you mentioned a while in the beginning of our conversation, is to really define what you want, you know, define that goal. And the coach simply asked him, he goes, or the psychologist or therapist or mental toughness coach asked him, he goes, so what are you throwing at when you're looking to strike out a batter? He goes, what kind of a question is that? He goes, you know, you got this big box that you know, you want to get the ball in there somewhere, you know, to strike the guy out. And the coach goes, why would you do that? Why don't you just aim for the catcher's mitt? And I go, and it was like revelation to him. He goes, so now you go from this big box to now, and you think you're hitting you're throwing strikes. You are, but now you've reduced your level of error because now your target got this small.
Yeah, I love that.
That was like an epiphany for a guy at that level. So you can imagine, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I've got a quick story. Is it all right if I share a story? I love my stories.
No, you can't.
So
this is very linear. You know, I want.
No.
You know.
X. So so Terry, how long have you been at Pepperdine, man? How long have you been at Pepperdine?
I got there in 2006.
2006. Okay, so do you remember a girl named, or a lady now, named Brie Vasali? She played in 2000 and, goodness me, probably 2014, 2015, 2016, when we went to WCC with Lynn Williams. Lynn Williams is on the national team now. Right. She just captained the national team, Lynn Williams. So I got to work with her. Amazing. I'm so proud of her. You know, we got a lot of girls that go on and play in the pros and stuff.
Right.
But Brie Vasali played with Lynn back in 2014 when Sweet 16. Yep. We won back-to-back championships in 2016, 2017. Yep. That was kind of like my first 4 years at Pepperdine.
I have a signed ball in my office from that year.
There you go. There you go. Right. So to breathe aside, if you remember, she was itty bitty, right? I
Right.
mean, like that's English for small, right? Itty
Right.
bitty, like she is itty bitty, and she's got like the old Italian fire in her, right? So she's like half Italian, half English, and so she comes in as a freshman, okay, and she won't mind me sharing this, but because I've already, spoken to her, and said like anytime if I have something like this, do you mind if I share your story? She said, feel free. So this one particular time, she's a freshman. She comes in. She's like, "Hey, Coach Max." She's like, "Can I meet with you?" I was like, "Sure, no problem. Let's go." So she goes, come by the office." I was like, "All right." So she comes by the office. She's like, "Max," she's like, "I'd love it if you could be my coach." And I'm like, "Well, I am your coach. Like, I'm the coach of Pepperdine. You play for Pepperdine." But she's like, "No. Like, you're the guru, the mental guru stuff. Like, I need some like mental stuff." Like, I'm like, "All right." She's like, "I heard you do that," and I'm like, "All right." So I was like, "Okay." So I sit down, and this is going back to you, Dr. Spencer. Like I said, "What do you want?" I said, "What do you want?" This is little 18-year-old freshman, little itty bitty Brever Sally. She comes in. By the way, you know who she used to play for in club? The Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's all these like top ECNL teams and like the top teams in the country. We just got back from an event like coach ECNL playoffs, the best players in the country. She was on this little rinky dink like Red Hot Chili Pepper team. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she just came out of the middle of nowhere. So that's one of the beautiful things too, is where we find these players is incredible. That's a whole nother story, is about like, sometimes you go to these top events, but sometimes you can find somebody like a Bree in the middle of nowhere, and she comes in and completely transforms your program. Lynn Williams out of Fresno, nobody recruited Lynn, and Lynn is now just captain the national team. Incredible stories, right? So she comes in. I said, "All right." So look, get on the whiteboard, write what you want. So she gets on the whiteboard. She writes, "Okay, this is what I want." She goes, "I want to be the best player on the team. I want to be the top goal scorer on the team. I want to be the WCC player of the year. I want to be an All-American. I want to go pro, and I want to play on the US national team." And I looked, I'm like just that, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're a freshman, you're 18, comes in. I haven't even played a game yet with Pepperdine. I'm like just that. But I really in it, I loved it. I loved the sort of the hunger and the fire that I saw in her eyes. She's like, she wanted it all, but I was like, it took a little guts to kind of write something that big on the board, right? So I'm like, all right, so let's get to work. So she comes out and she starts playing her freshman year. We go to the Sweet 16. She does, and she's a part of it. She's starting as a freshman. She's doing great. Get to the end of the year. How do you think the season went? "Oh God, it sucked. I can't believe it. Like I didn't make the all conference team. I can't believe it." And I'm like, "Bree, you were awesome. We just went to the Sweet 16. I had one of the best seasons in Pepperdine history." "Yeah, it sucked." And I'm like, okay. So we get to a sophomore year, and then she does really well again, right? And then she finally makes the all conference team. "Hey Bree, how do you think this year went?" "Oh my God, it sucked. I can't believe I wasn't the player of the year. I should have been the player of the year. I was only all conference." I'm like, "Bree," "you were amazing. Like, you serious?" So we had this back and forth, right? Junior year, we win the conference. How do you think? "Oh well, she was the one. She got invited to national camp. I only won the WCC." And with this whole thing, right? So I'm going back. So fellas, help hear me on this. I'm trying to do this full circle moment. Meaning, right? Meaning, she is having this extraordinary career, but she's so focused, right, on what she wants. And that's that little balance between, it's so important to know what you want. And I love that big box and then kind of little box, right? That's a dance in England, by the way. Big box, little box. You go to the clubs, you do big box, little box, top shelf, bottom shelf. Right? That's a whole dance. But anyways, I digress. That's a different story. So big box, little box, right? So it's important to like narrow your focus, but sometimes you can get so focused on that you miss so many other things. So it got to the end of her junior year, and she came into my office and she's like, "Coach, I just don't feel like it's happening for me." I said, "Okay." I was like, "So let me write my new goals on the board." I said, "Bree, don't pick up the pen." I said, "We're done." I said, "Don't pick up the pen." She's like, "Why not?" I said, "Look," I said, "I'm tired of this. 3 years you've been telling me what you want and making excuses as to why it hasn't happened. Telling me about she beat you to this and she beat you to that. We won the WCC, but it wasn't about us. It was about you." And this is not to say anything bad. Like, she is a sweetheart. But we made one change, Dr. Spencer, like you talking about. We made one change. I said, "Bree, why don't you, your senior year, instead of focusing on what you want, why don't we focus on who you need to be to get it?" And let's just direct all of our focus. So go back to what we said about state and energy. I say where focus goes, energy flows. What you focus on, you're going to feel. What you focus on, you're going to get more of. What if we just took all that energy and instead of putting it into what you want, what if we just grabbed it and let's put a concerted effort into figuring out who you need to be to get it, right? That identity piece. And let's just take what you want and just put it on the side. Put it on the side. Put it on the mantelpiece, you know? It's there, right? We know what you want because you've been saying it for 3 years, but let's just put it on the side just for a minute. And so then we created a different type of plan. And there was a plan about the type of person she needed to become. And little things started to happen. She came in earlier. She would come early for practice. She would stay after practice. She became a much more incredible leader. Her energy wasn't about her. Then it was about how can I serve my team? Instead of being the top goal scorer, it was about how could I assist my players? How could I be a much better assist person? How could I serve my team? And just her everything about who she was. And by the way, this is not me. This is all her. This is not me. I just simply just challenged her to think a little different way. And everything about her energy and her aura changed. And 3 months later, right, Dr. Terry, you know how long our seasons are. It's a pretty quick season. 3 months later, at the end of that season, she was the best player on our team. She was the top goal scorer on our team. She was the WCC Player of the Year. She was an All-American. Right after we finished season, she went to the convention. She got drafted into the NWSL. And then after she got drafted, she then went over to England and played in England and played in an FA Cup final in front of 70,000 people against Manchester City at Wembley, which is like one of my all-time favorite stadiums. And after getting drafted, the US national team called her up and invited her into the U21 camp. And I'm like, everything changed like that. And I only say that because it's like there's these little things that can make a big difference. And what you're saying, right, Spencer, it's like it's just a change in perspective. It's just shifting what something means in your life, right? And again, I say that was not me, but she was spent so much time focusing on what she wanted that she was her own worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? She was her own roadblock, you know? And as soon as she got out of her own way and she said, okay, who can I serve? Who can I help? How can I be grateful for all these opportunities? You know what I'm saying? Like before, and I'm like, hey, you know, great job. And she's like, it sucked. I wasn't the player of the year. I was only all conference. Well, it's good to want more in our world of high performance, but I don't also think we're grateful enough. One of the things we do at Pepperdine is we try and be so grateful for everything, right? Grateful for the highs and the lows, the good and the bad, the rough and the smooth, the things that we want and the things that we don't want, you know? And when you can be grateful for everything in your life, you realize that everything is happening for you and not to you, you know? And I know this is taking a little slight different direction, but it's like, these are the things that when it comes back to like the human spirit is like, if we can just learn to take our mental capacity and frame it and focus it on things that can help us, not hurt us, then anything is possible. And it's simply sometimes it's just these small things. And that was what it was for Brie. And there's countless other stories I could share about other players and other things that have happened. But in that instance, it was simply just, don't focus on what you want, focus on who you need to be, you know? And it sounds like it's the same thing, but it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's just a redirection of focus and energy. And you see it all the time, you know, you see these success stories and things like that. And I'm always fascinated by that, how such a small shift can create such an extraordinary result and how it can happen so quickly, you know? And you're like, sometimes, I mean, I had this before. It's like, somebody's like, hey, it took me 5 years to make a change. It didn't take you 5 years to make a change. It took you 5 years to decide to make the change. Once you actually had the breakthrough, boom, it took you a second to make the change. You know, that's what I love. Like I've been my own worst enemy too. So I know this isn't just like, you know, hyperbole. This is also learning from experience. There's things I've wanted and it's taken me years to get them. And then I look back, I'm like, why did it take me so long? It's because I didn't make the decision until 3 years later. I should have made it 3 years earlier. But once I made the decision, it happened like in an instant. And so that's another thing I think is these things that we want, and sometimes we struggle along the way so much to get them, and we're like, oh, this is really hard. It's not hard. You just got to get out of your own way. and make these small changes that can make extraordinary results. So, anyways, sorry, I got off topic a little bit, but that was from what you said about the big box, right? Not the dancing in the clubs in England, but big box, little box, right? And that's what came to mind for that.
That is very relevant for a lot of people. Just even the non-athletic folks. It's I speak to people all the time that as a chiropractor, as a doctor, we're meant to inspire people. They could be injured, and, not exercising or having trouble even picking up their own kid at home. Little things that mean a lot to them. But we are meant to inspire that person. But oftentimes when somebody comes in and their identity is tied to a certain level of performance or a certain perspective that they have, and they're not quite getting to that, they don't realize how good they actually are. And I like that you reframed everything for her.
Yeah.
Which is probably what you do for a lot of others too. They come in pretty excited, maybe not achieving what they want to achieve. Thank you.
Hey, Max, I got a question for you. Parents are it's like a double-edged sword. We're parents, and there comes a point when you want to push your kid to get to the point where they get, because they get an undeveloped brain, and we're trying to push them because we see what they don't see. But there also comes a point where we become an anchor instead of a sail. And what strategies do you have, not only for the parents' side to learn and understand and to have trust to back off, and the kids' side to have trust to let that sail take them wherever it takes them?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I mean, so to quote Tim, he calls parents crazy love. That's what he calls it. He calls it crazy love. He's like, parents have crazy love for their kids, and that crazy love comes out in a multitude of ways. I do love this. I won't take credit for this. This is something that I've heard many a time. Brett Ledbetter is a great psychologist and stuff like doing a lot of work with Becky Burley from Florida and stuff like that, the Florida Gators and stuff. But anyways, he talks about this, which I think is amazing, is he says, and I've borrowed from this in terms of also creating, and I'll give you what I'm about to say about what he says, but it's like a lot of things that I also talk about, challenge people to talk about, is ask better questions, right? So in life, so come back to like life to the max. A big part of that is you've got to ask better questions, right? I just created a journal, right? I mean, I don't think anybody knows about it, but I just coming out this summer, at the end of the summer, I have the book, but I also have a journal that's coming out. And in there, I've created these questions because I think questions are a toolbox for life. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the reasons people don't get what they want or don't feel the emotions they want to feel is because they don't ask the right questions. If you ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer, right? And so if you ask a bad answer and you have a bad answer, you're going to get bad results. It's like, why do bad things always happen to me? Well, if you say that, you're presupposing that bad things always happen to you. So what are you going to look for? The bad things, right? But it's like, or something bad, or a challenge comes your way or something you don't want. You say, well, what else could this mean? Just by asking the question, what else could this mean? You're opening up the pathway, right, to then try and find a solution to what's happening versus this sucks or this is not fair. You know what I'm saying? So questions are such a great way. And I think that's a big thing. So go back to Brad Ledbetter with parents. He's like, generally, and he's a basketball guy, he goes, when you get in the car when a kid gets in the car with a parent, he's like, what is generally the two questions that you ask your kid when you're in the car? It's like, did you play? And how many points did you score? Or did you win? Did you win? Did you play? And how many points did you score? So if those are the questions you're asking, you're conditioning your child to think that their value, come back to value and identity, is wrapped up in, did you play? How many minutes did you play? Did your team win? And how many points did you score? How effective were you in the game? And like, he's saying, well, what if you asked a different question? Did you have fun? Did you enjoy yourself? Was there a challenge that you got excited? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just different questions. And so we add to that pressure that these kids feel, because as a parent, you know, and I'm not a parent myself, feels like sometimes you have 50 between my wife's team and my team. And it's like you 30 kids and 20 kids, you put them together. It's like, you know, and that's a big part of what we do. Like, God hasn't blessed us with kids. And so we've talked about maybe adopting or stuff. But the point is that our whole life is centered around serving our teams. That's like our kids, right? And God's provided for us and will continue to provide us in abundance. But going back to kind of that parent role, it's like, if you're asking those questions, you're just adding to the pressure, because you're validating their worth through, well, you only scored 2 points. You didn't play. Why didn't you play? Does the coach not like you? Do you not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't win. Why didn't you win? And it's so, you've got to get good at asking better questions. And I can say that on those two scales. So, Dr. Terry, for you, when you look at that, I would challenge parents to see, like, what questions are you asking your kids? Because whatever question you ask, you're going to get the answer to it. And if you ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer. If you ask a more empowering question, you're going to get a more empowering answer, you know? And so encouraging parents to be conscious of the things that they're asking their kids, so that the kids can start to process, okay, well, if I did lose, well, what could I do better next time, you know? And I think that's a really powerful thing. And again, that's Brad Ledbetter who kind of brought that to my attention. And I've always stuck with that. And I've used the power of questions in a much in a similar way, but I can some of the stuff that kind of I do, and I love that. So does that make sense?
Yes. And on that note, you've got schools now. I mean, shoot, Pepperdine's $100,000, right? So now you've got these schools that are so expensive, and maybe a family can't afford it, and they get a partial scholarship, or they're just selling everything to get the kid, and then the kid shows up and they're just underperforming. Now the stress of parents going, oh my God, I can't financially, and so now I think you're dealing with stress parents too. If I'm right,
Yeah.
you're dealing with stress parents. For the parents on a financial standpoint understand money, where a kid, they may understand money, but they just know they come home, there's a roof over their head, there's food on the plate, and they don't really get it yet, and they don't really understand. And especially with YouTubers and TikTokers touting, oh, I made $5 million on this reel, and the kid doesn't understand the difference between $5 million and $5,000, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this dichotomy of pressures and stresses. The kid goes, oh my God, I've got to perform, or my dad's gonna yell at me because he's talking about a lot of money. I mean, to break it down, what's some strategies that you tell these people how they get through this?
Well, the thing that I think that has happened in the last couple of years, and I want to go back to Tim. You know, I think if you love what you do, you love where you do it, and you love who you do it with, that is the greatest thing. So I've been at Pepperdine. Maybe you could say the same, Dr. It's why I've been at Pepperdine, all right? And Dr. Spencer been in Florida and I've been with the Marlins, and those three things, okay? And this has nothing to do with your question, right? But I'm going to get to your question. But it's like, if you love what you do, you love where you do it, you love who you do it with, those three things. And working with Tim and Amber and Kevin, our whole staff, and everybody at Pepperdine, and with you as well. But Tim and I have been together now for 11, 12 years, and it's an incredible blessing to work with somebody like Tim Ward. And I know you know Tim. He's an incredible man, and his perspective on life and just sports and coaching, and you know, I have a funny story about how I even got to Pepperdine. Maybe that's for later, whatever. But what I was going to say is in the last couple of years, Tim has changed his relationship with parents. Because before he would be openly tell you this, is I used to keep parents at arm's length. He said, do not talk to me. Do not come and talk to me. If you want to come and talk to me, I'm going to kick your kid off the team. You know, he's like, as a younger coach, he's like, we needed that separation, because I don't need that, you know, stuff from parents, and I don't need the yap, and why this and why that. He's like, I don't need it. It's like, so start the season. If you come knocking on my door, if I get an email from you, guess what? Your kid's off the team. No ifs, ands, or buts, right? And there was this boundary. And that's changed. Last couple of years, he's like, Max, he's like, to help parents understand the process that we are taking these young women through, we need to invite them into our world.
Mm.
We need to invite them in. We need to have more parent meetings. We need to have preseason meetings. We need to share with them our vision. We need for them to see exactly what we're doing. Max, you need to talk to them about all this reframing and stuff, so our parents know that when it's tough for them, they're not going to go, when the players, they're not going to go to the parents and say, this sucks, it's not fair. The parents might come and say, what's happening? And they say, it's okay, mom. It's okay, dad. It's not exactly how I want it right now, but I've got this. You know what I'm saying? And empowering our players to have that conversation with parents. And so part of it is we need to educate the parents on our process. And that has significantly changed in the last couple of years from a very much a boundary type of linear type, boom, don't cross that boundary, to like, hey, come on, let's do this. We're doing this thing together. Players, coaches, and parents all together. And obviously still, there's certain conversations that we probably, we want to limit, but the idea is that they need to understand what their young daughters are kind of going through, and that when it gets tough, they're going to be okay because they have a support group or they have coaches that love them, that care for them. And sometimes we might intentionally make it hard for them, right? And you know this, right? You've been in the world of sports. Sometimes we have to make it hard for them. Why? So they can grow. Mm-hmm. That's a part of life, is we have to grow. How do you grow? You grow through tough things. So we have to intentionally make it tough. And when they're educated on that, then you know what happens? The amount of friction comes down. So that has been a massive change for us. And
Max, it's interesting that we talk a lot about, we've spoken a lot about the kids in their sport. What I think is really important is that you are preparing them for the real world and life beyond school, beyond the shelter of having a coach, beyond the shelter of having their teammates, being in a classroom. Now you're in the real world. You're dealing with a boss. You have no idea who he is or she is going to be, and your teammates are now the other employees that may be, great or not. Is there a couple things that you do to prepare them for that real world?
I think everything that we teach has these principles attached to them. I think, again, I go back to what I said before. I think the soccer is the vehicle to teach life. And I think that we have a very clear vision on, winning is obviously the point, but it's not our purpose. Our purpose is to develop women of character, right? Winning is the point in terms of, we won the WCC last year. We are one of the top ranked teams in the country. So in NCAA, in the periphery of our program, everybody looks at it and goes, winning is obviously the point, right? If it wasn't the point, we wouldn't step up. Dr. Terry wouldn't be on the sideline with us. Like, when we go to town and we go to what you see our girls, they compete, and they compete hard, and it is a beautiful thing to watch our girls, who are just beautiful young women inside, and then just shred it on the field, and to see them be competitive like warriors, it is amazing. But we said, you can be both. It's not an and or. Like, you can be a nice person and then not be competitive. You can be competitive, and then you can also look your teammate in the eye and be like, hey, great job. Like, so you can be competitive warriors. So that's a beautiful thing. And where I'm going with it is like, that obviously then sets them up for life. So recently, man, it wasn't this past semester. Maybe it's a semester. Maybe in the last few months. Whatever. We had a player, former player named Tara Morris. She came back to see Tim and I, and she played when Dr. Terry was here too. And she's now in pharmaceutical sales. She comes back. She's like, well, how you doing? She's like, Coach, I am killing it. She's like, I am absolutely killing it right now. This is just like, she's like, it's so easy. She's like, it's so easy. And we're like, what do you mean? She's like, man, I am the leading salesperson in our team. She's like, and all I do is exactly what I do at Pepperdine. Show up on time, work hard, and get it done. She's like, you'll be amazed at how many people show up late. They don't, they're not willing to put in the extra time. They're not willing to pick up the phone. Like, she goes, I'm literally doing everything that I used to do at Pepperdine, And she's like, I just went from here to here to here. And now she's like, just,
That's so cool.
But she's like, And she's like, but back, she's like, and it was her interpretation. She looked at, I'm looking at you guys, right? She's like, it's so easy, you know? She said, you just do what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, and she's like, that's what life, and I'm like, that's right. Because we prepared them for hard. We prepared them for tough. We prepared them for obstacles. We prepared them for challenges. We prepared them for when things get really tough and, you know? And then when life presents you with that, most people, what do? They falter. What is the athletes, what do? They find a way. And so it's beautiful. So she came back and it was her interpretation of it was just, I'm not even doing it justice. The way she looked at me, I'll never forget it. The way she looked at me, I'm like, it said, like, you know how pictures speak 1,000 words type thing?
Right.
Her eyes said everything. I'm like, yeah, you got it, go. Let's go. So
that's awesome.
So
that is a great story. And that is a good way to parlay into the fact that you often talk about living life to the max. And I think that's so appropriate for you. And, you know, I love that you share your value does not come from what you do. It comes from who you are. And I feel very strongly about that. And that's obviously what the girl that you were talking about is living. And we appreciate that. Max, we're nearing the end of the show, but we have to, because I think you're going to do really well with our rapid fire questions. We have 5 of them. Now,
all right, here we go.
Now, when I say real well, because you sound like you're quick on your feet, you think fast, but here is the challenge.
Okay.
It's rapid fire. So you have to answer it, very, very short answer, quick. Okay. All right. If you're ready.
Don't forget, Spencer, he is originally from England, so you might have to slow it down a little bit.
I like it. All right, I'm mentally preparing myself. Here we go.
All right, my man. Question number 1. You're part of a big concussion lawsuit. Now you coach women's soccer. What is the one thing you try and get across to your athletes to avoid the road to head injuries?
The road to head injuries. What to avoid?
What do you tell them to avoid to be careful of those head injuries?
Get your arms up. Get your arms up, because otherwise, people head the ball like this. Get up, protect yourself.
That's fantastic. I've never heard that. I really
like
that.
Women head the ball like this. Guys head the ball like this. Get your arms up. Create separation. Create a dance space. That's rapid fire. I'm going to stop. I'm supposed to keep.
Yeah, I know, but I'm loving that. See, it's funny because there was all this legislation in the state of Florida.
See, Spencer can't do rapid fire. He goes on the tangents now.
We didn't say that I had to be rapid fire. He has to be rapid fire.
Fair point.
That they stopped doing. They stopped heading the ball for under 18, and yet there was a study out in Denver that found that it's not heading the ball that caused the concussion. It's the body blows that cause the head to
head to head.
Yeah.
Head to head.
So this is beautiful. Okay. Question number 2. We'll talk about this off the air.
Dirty Dancing. This is your dance space. This is my dance space. The old school movie. That's it.
Yeah.
This is my space. That's your space. Get out of my space. Boom.
I love it. Question number 2. If you're familiar with Wim Hof, the instructor, you are him. For those taking their first ice bath, what would you tell them to anticipate? Panic, peace, or power?
All 3, because you have to. What's the first one? Panic. You jump in. You're gonna experience panic. What's the second one?
Peace.
Peace. Think about peace, and then what's the third one?
Power.
And then that will lead to power.
All right, man.
Expect power. Expect panic. Expect panic. Think about peace, and it will lead to power.
Oh, that's beautiful. Question number 3. Biggest culture shock for you personally coming from the AFL to Malibu? The way they talk?
Sup, dude? Dude? Sup? The biggest culture shock. Oh goodness me! I'm trying to answer this quickly. How everybody cares, and what I mean by that is there's a lifestyle. Lifestyle is a big thing. Like just the in Malibu, the lifestyle it's different. It's different. I don't know if that makes sense. I might have to elaborate now, but this is quick fire. So
No. It's funny because you're playing it safe because you could just said that was a bad thing or a good thing, but we'll leave that for now.
yeah.
All right, man. Question number 4. Ever had a max moment where you didn't live up to your own motto? And what was that?
Ooh, all the time. All the time. I think that there is a we're humans. We're human. And the max moments are there to create pathways to see life in a better way. But the reality is we're human, and everybody is going to falter at some point. And I will hold my hand up and say the reason that I am doing what I'm doing, I'm so passionate about it, is because the first person I had to work on was myself. So I am the least perfect person on this school. You know what I'm saying? And so those max moments were designed because in some way I needed them as much as anybody else. So I still falter. And so in the book there's 42 of them. So you say which one? All 42. If I'm just being honest, it's like so I think that there's something to that, is the honesty. We're human.
We're constantly and never ending in our improvement. And that's a great answer. Thanks. Speaking of honesty and being authentic, your name is appropriately Max, and you've come up with this great paradigm for yourself, living to the max, and all that. Is that your original name, or if you did have? Because I knew a Maximilian who was a patient of mine. Is that your original name, Maximilian, or
it is Maxwell?
Maxwell.
I'm gonna ask for it's Maxwell, but I'm gonna ask for a 20-second leeway to share one thing. Is that possible? I don't want to quick fire. These are the rules, right? So I don't want to break the rules, right?
It's the last question. Go for it, man.
So I don't know if everybody sees this. The book. There is a red square and there's a red triangle in the max. There's two things on here. There's this. And there's this. There's two things on this book. This is not for resale because this is like the original, but it's like this and this. And that's by design. People always ask me, they're like, why is there a red piece in the middle of the A? My mum passed away 6 years ago. I dropped her off at LAX. She came to visit with my dad. I dropped her off at LAX. Gave her a hug. We planned the next trip. She got on the airplane. 4 days later, I got a call. She had a heart attack, stroke, dead. And when she passed away, I'll never forget a story. When I was younger, she would always say to me, she'd be like, Max, she's like, I really had to fight hard to call you Max. She's like, so many people at the time back when I was like young, she's like, many people, they're like, because Max was not like a popular name. She's like, you're gonna destroy his future by calling him Max. He's gonna get bullied. It's like, it's not you. And she said, I'll never forget it. She said, Max, I really had to fight hard to call you Max. And there's something about you. You were always a Max. And I was like, and I never got it. I never got it. And then when I started this journey of life to the max, I researched the definition of Max, and the Latin version of Max is greatness. And so that's why every book, every program, everything that I have has the name great in it. So it's Max Moments, the journey from good to great. It's the first step to greatness, the journey from good to great, project greatness. Like everything I talk about is how do you go from good to great? And in large part, I'm doing this because of my mom, and she saw something in me that I didn't see for myself, because she's like, you're meant to be a Max. And I didn't know it when I'm like 5, 6 years old, but now I know. And so my hope is that I can pass that on to the next generation. And so that's why this means so much to me. What I do is because I'm leaving that legacy and I'm passing on what my mum saw in me. And so when I said at the beginning, I said I tried to see in people what others can't see for themselves. That's because my mum saw in me, I think at an early age, what I couldn't see for myself. So thank you for that little leeway.
Great ending to this story, Max. You are great, man. That was sensational. thank you. And thank you for being on the show. I got a lot out of it, and I'm sure that our audience will too. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Cracking Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cracking Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.